It started with an unlikely photo. No podium, no ceremony. From deep inside the Temple Mount, Benjamin Netanyahu came forward, moving quietly under the dim light of a tunnel. No press, no visible security detail. Around him, engineers, archaeologists, and rabbis. The scene made it clear. This wasn't routine. For years, the Prime Minister has said Jerusalem is eternal. There, under stone and dust, the line took on a different weight. It stopped being a slogan and stepped into meaning. For some, into a warning. Why go down there? A technical inspection? A move to cement a historical narrative? Or the first, still contained trace of an old ambition, to rebuild the temple? On the surface, the city kept going. Pilgrims touched the western wall. Guides gathered groups. The smell of fresh bread filled the alleys. Just a few meters below, another story was waking up, slow and heavy with symbols that could shape the fate of nations. Are we looking at political calculation or a chapter many would call prophetic? Days before anything circulated, there was an almost invisible meeting. No public schedule, no leaks. The address, a secure hall next to the Davidson Center, where Herod's stones still guard the past. There, a small but influential assembly waited. The chief rabbinate and leaders of the Temple Institute, guardians of a tradition that doesn't do improvisation. As for what was discussed, silence. The signs suggest Jerusalem's underground started speaking again, and those who went down to listen didn't come back the same. They didn't show up in uniform. IDF generals mixed with technicians, measured steps and trained eyes. On the sides, a few outside observers watching every move. Among them, veteran archaeologists, sometimes tapping on tablets, sometimes checking copies of scrolls. A projection filled the wall and the room went still. Holographic scans stripped the mount in layers. First buried corridors, then sealed chambers. Finally, a broad, even stone platform lined up exactly under the dome of the rock. The measurements matched ancient descriptions of the first temple's foundation stone. The tension changed temperature. Netanyahu broke the silence with a short, no-rhetoric line. This wasn't about taking territory, but about reclaiming a timeline. It wasn't a message for the press. It was a signal to those who'd been waiting for this moment. The decision came without a vote. He himself would go down, not to watch, but to show that the hypothesis phase was giving way to preparation. The descent started carefully. The mount doesn't give way easily. Step by step, the light faded and the cold pushed through the narrow corridors. The sound of equipment replaced conversation. Flashlights swept the dust in tight beams, marking arrows on the rock. The archaeologists traded quick looks. The foreigners searched for meaning on the screens. Every turn brought a new detail. A slab fitting, an old cut in the floor, a stretch of staircase cut off. And with every meter, the certainty grew. These weren't dead ruins, but a mechanism kept in the dark, waiting for the next command. The smell of earth and limestone rises heavy. Under the Temple Mount, a maze of corridors stretches out. Some opened when Solomon's temple ruled the city. Others reinforced in recent months in quiet shifts. Nothing there is improvised. Every turn and every arch follows a plan. In the center of certain chambers stand support columns, old in design and sheathed in steel. The spacing, height, and width follow precise numbers, mirroring measurements preserved in sacred records. Engineering teams are at work, sensors log load and micro tremors. For people who read prophecies, though, those calculations serve another agenda: preparation, not just preservation. Reports attributed to the Western Wall Heritage Foundation's files mention underground maps aligned with a familiar vision. The last house would surpass the first. And there's a line from an engineer, caught without audio and reconstructed by lip reading. When the time comes, the world will see everything at once. This doesn't look like digging out of curiosity. It's a hidden job site whose reveal could shift religious and political tectonic plates. And a project like this doesn't live on its own. It needs night routes and quiet. Unmarked crates go in. Scanners cross-check old blueprints with fresh surveys. On paper, it's structural reinforcement. Underground, it's a countdown moving forward, under clocks that don't show up on official surfaces, waiting for a signal that can light up all at once. Everything that's been prepared so far. At first glance, it all feels like a conflict frozen in time. The Temple Mount remains a flashpoint where faith, power, and memory meet. Up top, It's a tightly watched zone with Islamic sanctuaries guarded by devotion. Any work there could spark a regional fire. But the real movement isn't in plain sight. Under the stones, a patient strategy takes shape, planned move by move. Like a chessboard, only a few are watching. On that board, theology carries weight. For readers of prophecy, a working temple coming back isn't a detail. It's a condition for certain texts to leave the margins and step into history. Without it, the end-time script stays on pause. With it, the clock tends to speed up, and the world has to hear that rhythm. The sticking point is the place. Building on the summit would put communities face to face with risks you can't measure. That's why the proposal drops a level. Stones are lined up out of the camera's focus. Beams fit together where the public doesn't go. The goal isn't to hide, but to avoid the immediate spark. And as the work advances, another front opens. Quiet talks with Muslim scholars willing to debate a bold idea. Shared holiness, side by side, without erasing anyone. It's not a consensus, and it's not simple. Even so, it's the kind of move that, if it works, could redraw symbolic boundaries and touch the fate of more than one nation. The game is still on, and every move sets up the next one. There's an ongoing conversation, fragile and tense, that echoes the warning of Matthew 24:15. When you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation. The board is set, the moves are happening in the open, and the impact won't be limited to Jerusalem. Even so, behind the strategies and the headlines, questions refuse to die. One is back at the center. Where is the Ark of the Covenant? For decades, the answer orbited a controversial story. Explorer Ron Wyatt claimed it was under the Temple Mount. Many brushed it off as speculation. But the conversation has changed. With LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar, anomalies popped up. Sealed chambers, signs of intentional work. Some more than 30 feet down, untouched for millennia. Since then, the back channels have been buzzing. Some say one of those chambers was opened, its contents recorded and taken to a discreet location. Others insist everything's still sealed, waiting for a prophetic time. No official statement. The silence from Israeli authorities became part of the story, and in that vacuum, speculation grows by the day. For believers, the Ark isn't just an old object. It's God's throne on earth, the vault for the tablets of the covenant. Even so, Jeremiah 3:16 points to a time when no one will say, "The Ark of the Covenant of the Lord." It won't be remembered, it won't be missed, and another won't be made. Between signs, rumors, and sacred texts, the question stays open, and the next move could change everything. What if we're living through the interval where everything gets rearranged? Not because the Ark has to appear now, but because the stage is set. The question hangs between faith and archaeology, between heaven's timing and human will. While the Ark stays out of sight, another story moves forward in silence. The pieces for temple service are being made and put into place with precision. In Jerusalem, the Temple Institute has been working for years, away from the spotlight. One by one, the utensils described in the Torah are being recreated. The golden menorah, the table of the showbread, the altar of incense, the silver trumpets. No approximations. Measurements and materials follow the ancient instructions. The priestly garments, woven with blue, purple, and scarlet threads, are in sealed storage. Sashes with gold threads sit tagged and ready. And the high priest's breastplate, with 12 stones for the tribes of Israel, has been polished as in the days of Aaron. In recent weeks, quiet reports have been circulating. They talk about moves under escort, not to display cases, but to underground chambers with a practical purpose, testing and trial runs. A witness says they saw a covered vehicle flanked by guards vanish through a sealed tunnel entrance near the western wall. There was no official statement. Anyone who recognizes the silhouette of a trumpet or the proportions of an altar gets the message. The material requirements for the resumption of worship are, piece by piece, ready, waiting for the moment to step out of the shadows. Now the preparations are complete. Only the temple is missing. And as this machinery moves quietly, the outside world wakes up. Nothing stays limited to one neighborhood or square. A photo circles the globe in minutes. A rumor turns into a headline. And Netanyahu's silent walk beneath the mount stops being a behind-the-scenes topic. At the UN, ambassadors were urgently called in. In the hall, the air is heavy with restrained speeches, warnings, demands, promises of caution. The Vatican releases a careful note, reminding that Jerusalem lives in the hearts of many and asking for respect among faiths. From Tehran and Ankara come harsh reproaches, accusing Israel of threatening Islamic heritage. But Amman and Riyadh take an unexpected path. They suggest discussing the creation of a shared sacred space. For some, it's pure tactics. For others, a sign of something bigger. Maybe a settlement old texts hint at. Anyone who follows the city hears in the background the echo of Psalm 122:6. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. It's just that peace there has always been fragile. Every step taken beneath the mount presses the balance, tightens the ropes, exposes the cracks. Then comes the question no one can shake off. Why does it feel different now from all the previous attempts? The idea of rebuilding the temple has already surfaced in speeches, movements, and plans whispered among rabbis. This time, though, the signs are stacking up in sequence. Diplomats on alert, opinions realigning, proposals that once sounded unlikely. If these pieces keep fitting together, what comes next? For years, every attempt hit the same walls. Political backlash, divisions between streams of faith, and the constant shadow of violence. Whenever the conversation took a step forward, opposing forces pulled it back. Now, though, there's a real shift. At the top, there's a will to act. Religious leaders who rarely agree have started speaking with unusual unity. Archaeology teams have confirmed, beneath the mount, structures that line up with accounts preserved for centuries. And far from the spotlight, military planners are sketching how to protect the work, keeping it safe from the turmoil above. It's no longer a peripheral effort pushed by isolated groups. It's the state, its leaders, spiritual authorities, and technical experts, quietly moving in the same direction. The Temple Mount, frozen for so long as an icon of stalemate, is starting to change, and that alters the ground under everyone's feet. When something moves in Jerusalem, history tends to pick up speed. If history has started marching again, maybe an ancient clock has been set. For many Christians, rebuilding a temple isn't just an architectural milestone. It works as a sign that the biblical timeline is approaching decisive chapters. The expectation of Christ's return and the rise of the one described in Scripture as the great deceiver. What comes after depends on the next step, and it might be closer than it seems. For many observant Jews, what's being announced is the resumption of an ancient form of worship. Sacrifices returning, a covenant rekindled, the continuity of a promise handed to distant ancestors. Visions vary, but the urgency is shared. The Gospel of Luke 21:28 echoes, "When these things begin, lift up your heads, because redemption is drawing near." It's not a calendar clock. It's a compass of events that sounded unlikely yesterday and today line up in sequence. If these signs have substance, this is the moment for redoubled attention. So we return to the starting point, a quiet underground act capable of changing trajectories. That day beneath the mount, Netanyahu had neither cameras nor a podium by his side. He was with those who carry specific responsibilities: archaeologists attentive to memory, rabbis mindful of prophecies, builders with plans meant to last. They walked through still air corridors, touched stones that hold voiceless stories. And if the account is accurate, it's not just about fixing ruins, it's preparation for what comes next. The utensils are already ready. The priestly garments, too. Spaces once hidden are starting to reveal themselves. Piece by piece, a design appears, sharper with every step. And the question reaches us: will we recognize the time we're living in? Or will we let it slip away, only to grasp it when it's too late? Jerusalem wakes up. Under our feet, history moves, and it hasn't written its last line yet. Thanks for sticking with us this far. If this topic speaks to you, like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. In it, we'll go back beneath Jerusalem and follow the trail of these signs. What's already ready, what's still missing, and why so many believe the clock has sped up. Until then, keep your head up and your heart alert. History keeps moving, and we'll see you in the next video.